In this 8-minute priority matrix curriculum video, we're going to be talking about the email integration and whether or not it should matter to you. So you might be wondering right now, should I care about email integration? This is a great question, and to answer it, we're going to examine different types of email sequences. By email sequence, I mean all the steps that an email simply landing in your inbox should trigger for you. The first step is pretty simple: opening and reading that email. The other steps are a little bit more involved. There can be any number of steps like forwarding, responding, deleting, pondering, assigning an action item, or archiving. Now, for your peace of mind, not all of these steps should be done in your inbox. So as an example, actions like forwarding, responding, and deleting definitely belong in your inbox. But activities like pondering, discussing, or completing and assigning action items that the email represents should not happen in your inbox. Finally, archiving is kind of a maybe. If this email serves as a record, it definitely should be archived in your inbox. But if it's more of a practical resource, you should actually move it into wherever you work so you can access it more handily, like Priority Matrix. So let's talk about a couple different scenarios of emails. The first one is pretty simple. It shouldn't be moved into Priority Matrix. There are only two steps. Step 1, opening and reading. Step 2, deleting. Both of these actions belong in your inbox, so you don't really need to factor in the Priority Matrix integration. Now, the second scenario is an email that requires a completed task before you respond to it. Now, of course, opening and reading it belongs in the inbox, but you can actually then import this task, this email, into Priority Matrix. You'll have all the context needed to work on that item. You can add due dates, etc. Then, using the Priority Matrix integration, you can navigate back to the inbox to respond as your third step. In a similar way, an email that requires research or pondering does belong in Priority Matrix. Once again, we want to hold all your action items, even the ones that emails generate, in Priority Matrix. So once more, first step in the inbox, second step in Priority Matrix, and then the third step back to the inbox to respond. Now, the next scenario that we're going to talk about is an instance where it does belong in Priority Matrix. You open and read the email, then you create an item in Priority Matrix, create an action item, and then you actually assign it to someone else. So you don't have to forward this email to someone else and ask them to do it. You can actually simply bring it into Priority Matrix and assign it to them. So this is an instance where the Priority Matrix integration is probably going to matter to you. Next, we've got a 4-step sequence. Step 1 and Step 4, opening and reading, and then responding, of course, belong in the inbox. But in between, there are 2 steps. There's the discussion, and then there's completing a task or action item as a result of that discussion. So those 2 actions, of course, should not just stay at the top of your brain. They should happen in Priority Matrix, where they can sit alongside all your other priorities. And then finally, the scenario where you open, you forward, and then you delete. Now, this is different from actually creating an action item in Priority Matrix and assigning to someone else. Why is this? Because if you create an action item in Priority Matrix, you have some sort of stake in that item. You care what happens. This is a scenario where you're not going to have a relationship with this email going forward. It's simply like you are the wrong person, you forward it to the right person, and they can do whatever they like with it. They can, of course, choose to pull it into Priority Matrix themselves, but you don't need to have that responsibility. You don't have to bear the responsibility for that. So you open it and read it, you forwarded it, and then you deleted it. So that belongs in the inbox, and so Priority Matrix doesn't really need to come into the picture here either. So as we can see, there are a couple different email scenarios, and some of them, the more simple sequences, don't necessarily need Priority Matrix. But if there are instances where emails create action items for you or for someone else, then that's where Priority Matrix can be really valuable. That's where you create an item from an email, and that's how you can really sort of pull in the responsibilities that your inbox generates into the area where you're prioritizing and making sure that things don't fall through the cracks. Now, on our support page, you can find more detailed information on this. However, I want to give you a quick visualization of the different ways that you will move an email into Priority Matrix once you've determined that doing so is the right choice. First, we have our Outlook and Chrome plugins that can be found on our download page right here. Once you've installed your plugin, you will have a handy little button in your inbox letting you select where in Priority Matrix the email will be imported as an item. Another way you can import emails into Priority Matrix if you use Outlook or iMail is simply by dragging and dropping. To do this, simply click on an email in your inbox and drag and drop it over into whichever quadrant you wish. Now, even if the Priority Matrix dashboard isn't open on your screen, as long as the program is running, you can hover the email over the Priority Matrix logo in your taskbar, and it will open for you. And the same also goes if the project you wish to add the email to is not currently open on your dashboard. Simply hover the email over the correct project in the list on the left, and wait for the project to open, and then drop it into your quadrant. Finally, even if you're using an email client other than Gmail, iMail, or Outlook, you can still create items from emails through forwarding. On Mac, you will right-click on a quadrant and select to copy the secret email address that you can see in this image. And on Windows, you will right-click on the project in the list on the left, select Sharing, and choose the email for the right quadrant. Then you have the option to save this email as a contact and forward any messages to this address. As you can see, necessary information is conveniently translated over into item format. And now let's quickly review. The decision whether or not to use email integration should be made case by case. An email sequence is the collection of steps triggered by an email landing in your inbox. And finally, you can find the step-by-step email integration instructions on our help page. Congratulations, you've finished our Priority Matrix curriculum video course. Thanks so much for watching.